It's August 1914 and World War I has begun. From Belgium to the Swiss border, the Battle of the Frontiers is raging. Under Plan 17, the French have launched their own opening offensive and suffered staggering losses. To the north, the French Fifth Army prepares for its assault at Charleroi, an assault which will cost the French dearly. Now, the fighting shifts to the industrial city of Mons, where the British will fire their first shot of the Great War. On August 21st, the BEF are marching towards the industrial city of Mons. This contemptible little army, as Kaiser Wilhelm coined them, were a full-time professional force, nothing like the mass conscript armies that the other powers were mobilizing. Their mission? To link with France's Fifth Army and form a united front to defend Belgium. The French were gathering at Charleroi, and the British would anchor the line to the north. The BEF was battle-hardened and experienced, but not without its flaws. Like the French, their knowledge of artillery was primitive, their heavy guns too few, and many officers still clung to pre-war ideas. Most of their experience had been in colonial wars, against enemies with inferior firepower. Mons would be very different. The British had masterfully concealed their movements onto the continent, and the Germans were unaware of their arrival ports. But as the BEF moved towards Mons, they were unknowingly marching straight into the path of the German First Army. Both sides were nervous, both were effectively blind. Sir John French believed he faced only one, maybe two German corps. In reality, he faced an army, double his own. On August 22nd, the British reached the Mons Canal. From here, they were prepared to strike forward and attack. But news arrived from the front that the French Fifth Army was under heavy assault and couldn't advance. The British were furious to be stuck on the defensive, cursing what they saw as French weakness. By sheer coincidence, the Germans also arrived at the canal that evening, and the next day, the British got their first action in the war. The Germans began probing attacks, testing this new opponent on the battlefield. From 10:30 am, the fighting extended along the canal, beginning the Battle of Mons. The Germans advanced in dense formations and met the full force of British musketry. The British rifle volleys were so intense that the Germans thought they were facing multiple machine guns. But the Germans quickly adapted, changing to loose formations and bringing up heavy artillery guided by aircraft. At Nimy Bridge, repeated frontal attacks smashed into the British line. A young Irish lieutenant by the name of Maurice Dease stayed at his machine gun, sustaining multiple wounds and refusing to retreat. He fired until he collapsed. He died from his wounds later that day, at the age of 23. The BEF stubbornly held on, but by mid-afternoon, the British position was collapsing under the sheer weight of German numbers. And then, dire news arrived from their French allies to the east. The French were pulling back from Charleroi, leaving the BEF's flank dangerously exposed. A retreat was the only option. The next day, the Germans attacked again. The BEF, now even more outnumbered, headed towards the town of Les Cateaux. It was an organised, disciplined, and very British retreat. Indeed, casualties were so minimal that a legend was created. As the British pulled back, spectral ghosts wielding longbows appeared, phantoms from the ancient British Battle of Agincourt. The Battle of Mons would continue to be sensationalised. Stories claimed that the BEF slaughtered Germans in their tens of thousands, only being forced to retreat due to the fickle French. Reality was slightly different, however. Firstly, not every soldier was a seasoned veteran of abroad, many were new recruits. And secondly, even if the French had held, the German onslaught was simply too great for the little BEF. Casualty numbers for this battle vary wildly. The German casualty number is unclear, but is now estimated at around 2,500, an impressive resistance by the British, but not quite the massacre of legend. The Battle of the Frontiers has raged across the entire Western Front, with devastating losses on both sides. 4 major battles have occurred, bringing the casualty rate into the hundreds of thousands. When accounting for the other battles occurring at this time, as well as skirmishes, rearguard actions, pursuits, the number skyrockets even higher. Across the entire front, the Allies are in full retreat. The French Plan 17 lay in ruins. France had suffered enormous casualties. On August 22nd alone, 27,000 French soldiers were killed. This is the highest number of deaths in World War I for any country in a single day, and the deadliest day of all time for the French army. And so, you might imagine that Commander-in-Chief General Joffre would be in hiding somewhere. But no, every morning he arrived at HQ, making sure not to miss his full breakfast, loaded with meat and croissants. So, how did he keep such a calm composure? Well, by blaming everybody else, of course. Joffre issued a message to all his commanders. In the north, our army and the BEF have suffered checks and been forced to retire. One must face facts. Our corps on the battlefield haven't shown those offensive qualities for which we had hoped. We are therefore compelled to resort to the defensive. Joffre saw no fault in Plan 17, or himself for that matter. For him, the failure lay in the commanders and their lack of offensive spirit. The reality was the opposite. If anything, there was too much offensive spirit going on. But August 1914 was the French army at its worst. From this point onwards, things would begin to change. During the retreat, French command issued a note for all armies, admitting hard lessons. Infantry must be supported by artillery. Entrenchments must be dug. Aircraft must be used to locate enemy guns. The French learned quickly, and that willingness to adapt is one of the main reasons they weren't defeated outright. And ironically, another one of France's saving graces was Joffre himself. Joffre nearly lost France in August, but he may have saved it in September. His stubbornness and resolve kept the retreat orderly. His rationality helped reorganize shattered armies, and soon he would prepare for a final stand on the Marne. But what about the Germans? Well, by August 24th, they were riding on a high. Everywhere they looked, they saw broken armies. Belgium had been torn open, Paris seemed exposed. Many believed Schlieffen's great plan was being fulfilled before their eyes. But the seeds of German failure had already been planted. Back in Lorraine, the first battle of this entire frontiers campaign, the German 6th and 7th armies were meant to hold the French in place, pinning them down. Instead, they counterattacked, driving the French back to the Grand Couronne, a ridge of fortified hills, the strongest position the French had so far. There, for the first time, the French were on the defensive and holding firm. But German Prince Ruprecht wanted more. Since he began the offensive, he dreamed of smashing through the French line and achieving a double encirclement, just like the hero Hannibal Barca at Cannae. He requested Commander-in-Chief Moltke for permission, expecting a refusal. Instead, Moltke, also lured by a double encirclement, agreed. So on August 23rd, he launched a massive frontal assault into the French positions. Wave after wave of attacks were repulsed. The Germans became bogged down. Troops that were supposed to reinforce the German right wing remained stuck in Lorraine. And then came the fatal decisions that may have just cost Germany the war. Moltke weakened the German right wing in Belgium, diverting 2 corps, a cavalry division, and heavy artillery south. Precisely what Schlieffen had warned must never be done. Reserve troops mobilizing in Germany were also sent to this front, whilst troop numbers on the right wing were slowly grinded down. He then committed a major offence, releasing 2 corps to the east to deal with Russia. As the Germans advanced, their supply lines became longer, their numbers weakened. Meanwhile, the French, previously battered and bruised, were now digging their heels in. No German would cross the Marne. Paris would not fall.